Welcome to this week's episode of the Lads Film Thing podcast, where four friends discuss a film and generally have a good time. So you've got me, I'm Lucy, Abby,
hi,
Dan,
hello,
and Sam.
Hey.
So Dan, this week is your film choice. Do you want to tell us a bit about it?
Yes, thank you. This week is my choice, and it's our spooky Halloween episode. I've chosen Get Out, which is the 2017 psychological thriller/horror. Which is the directorial debut from Jordan Peele. Looking forward to discussing this with everyone. So, what did you all think?
I'll go first. So, I really love the opening of this film because it's the scene where Andre is walking down the suburbs, and it's just so tense and well done. You're scared with him, you have no idea what's going on. This is our first glimpse as to what the film's about, and it's just the bit where he gets dragged away is just like so creepy.
You forget so quickly until you realise it's him later on in the film.
Yeah.
I have already seen it once, and I'd forgotten that was him at the beginning.
I suppose because part of the film, and obviously there's spoilers throughout, is that when you see him again, it's not the same. You're not supposed to really recognise him because he is a different person. And it's just done really well, isn't it? Like, it takes you so long to realise, oh yeah, that's him again.
Yeah, definitely. And that song is just absolutely petrifying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's that same thing that kind of pops back up later on in the film when, again, spoilers, but when Chris is trying to run out and then he gets in that car and you're like, oh, this is the same car I saw from the very start.
Yeah.
And that song plays again. It like comes on automatically when it turns the engine on, doesn't it? I think.
And it's not one song.
Yeah, it's probably just something that takes.
It's been missing for like months, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be less of a creepy family if you like rotate to your mixtape a little bit.
When you've got a favourite song, you've got a favourite song. Okay.
Even if it's a 1940s version of like a children's song.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, the ears want what they want.
Yeah, I found that though. There's a lot of like subtle things that you see, and then later on you're like, oh, that happened way earlier. It's like a reference, or it pops up again.
So one of my bits that I kind of kept coming back to was the bit where they're touring the house, and it's such a freaky tour. Like when he says there's like a couple of bits of foreshadowing through it where you're like, that's a bit odd, and then you kind of don't think anything of it, and then later on you're like, oh, that makes 100% sense now. Like when they say about the basement and they're like, oh, don't worry about going down there or whatever.
Like water damage or something.
Yeah, water damage. Like there's a reason to not go down there. And then they go into the kitchen and he says like his mum had died or something, but we keep a little bit of her in the kitchen. And then there's just Georgina just stood there like, and then when they go outside, he says, oh, we like it because it's like super private. And I was thinking, why do they need privacy? Like, what kind of person says that immediately as like a thing? But all of those things then make sense when you've seen the whole film. You're like, oh yeah, obviously don't go in the basement because that's where we do everything terrible. A little bit of grandma means a lot more than it did when we saw that bit. Yeah, exactly, a sliver, if one will. And yeah, obviously they need privacy for their freakish silent auctions and everything.
My thing that I picked up on was the sunken place, but actually like the phrase the sunken place. I've seen that used on like Instagram comments and like memes and stuff. Oh, he's gone to the sunken place.
Oh, like not about this film.
Yeah, not about this film, but just like that's a phrase that's passed into like common like terminology and stuff as a way of like being like, oh shit, he's receded into himself a bit. That kind of thing.
And we said that, didn't we, when we were watching the 100 or the top 100 films, that they weren't necessarily the best films or the most like cinematographically amazing, but what they were was they would give you like full breadth of the zeitgeist to really understand like every possible meme and concept that was in
pop culture history and one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like you would now understand every Simpsons episode that there was because we watched those top 100. Yeah, so that's clearly like
Yeah,
this
is
has
like
happened with this film.
another entry into this for the 21st century,
Mm.
kind of. Yeah. I mean, the other thing I read up about afterwards with the sunken place is and I think you said about this, he's falling into the sunken place, and you can see that little view, which is like the TV screen, and you're like, oh, it's not even a big screen.
It's the tiniest screen.
Tiny little window.
They're like 14-inch TV.
Yeah. But, and what I was going to say was, I read that obviously there's loads of commentary on, racial tension and racism generally and that kind of thing, slavery. But this was a thing about black people being featured in cinema, and how there's not proportionally, there's not that over the whole history of cinema, there's not that many black people in cinema. They're just relegated to being in the theatre watching it, which is exactly what he is being done.
Yeah.
In the sunken place. He's in that dark room and all can see. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's kind of like a comment on that, which I thought was actually really powerful, and especially after you'd said that as well. Like, he's just got this tiny screen you can only watch.
Exactly what I was trying to say.
Yeah, we got that when you said it's a tiny screen.
The first bit where the film starts to get like really creepy, and you're like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
And then there were two, in my mind, really creepy parts of the film. The first one, which will go down in horror history, was Jeremy's mustache. Which was just inexcusable. Like,
the scariest bit of the whole thing.
Forget the psychological trauma, but that tash was just disgusting.
Agreed.
And the second one was the first time he like properly jumped was Walter running across the garden lawn in the middle of the night, and you're thinking, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
That was really weird. That was a moment where you and I were like looking at each other like, hang on, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? It was just like, very intense, and I didn't know where it was going to go.
I suppose that's again, it's so like the film, isn't it? Like, I think I know what's going to happen here. You're like, no, completely different. You literally, it just shows I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
I do have a question on that though, because I actually do not know what's happening, even though we have finished the ending of the film, and he kind of says about it later, doesn't he? Where he says like, "Oh, sorry for my little exercise thing." But is the point of that was the sliver of the person that was left?
No, I think the whole point was that Roman was the guy who came up with this thing.
Yeah.
He lost his running race, didn't he, in the 1940s?
To Jesse Owens.
So he always prided running and athletic ability. So he chose water for his speed. And that's just him like making the most of his new vessel. And that's,
he couldn't do it during the day because they were putting into work chopping wood or doing other stuff.
I guess in that visit, I assume Nan and Grandad during a normal week wouldn't be relegated to like staff duties. But I guess for that point it was. The same way that Jim wanted the eyes, Roman wanted the legs because he was a runner at heart and wanted the fastest legs.
And actually that super freaky bit with the guy in the wheelchair at the party and his wife saying like, is it better? When he clearly looks like he's about to pop at any second. And again, at the time you're like, what a weird thing to say to somebody. And then afterwards you're like, oh yeah, obviously she's thinking, I could have some hunky guy with like my sliver of old man in him.
Oh. No.
Oh God.
No, but I did think as it went on, there was like more than I expected, like of hinting about what was coming. Like there was a lot of talk about hypnotism, and she was very open. Like the mum was very open that she was a hypnotist, and I was thinking, well, clearly these people are hypnotized because they're acting weird, and they've already like they've thrown hypnotism in, and I was like, you've given it away already. What's happening here?
Yeah.
But it was almost like it added to the experience because I was like, well, I think I know what's happening, but actually it's not really coming to anything. I don't really know what's going on, and I didn't know where it was going to go. So it was quite good to like build the suspense that way, that it wasn't just like a family visit and then suddenly bang, like everyone's hypnotized and now you're in it too. It's like enough of like a journey to be like, ooh, I don't really know what's going on. Okay, now it all makes sense.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, because it was really just a form of sedation, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To then get them downstairs and chain them up.
And I suppose one thing I did read online as well, stopping him smoking was also strategic as well, because Jim wanted a healthy set of lungs as well.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they want to
Yes.
make sure that they're not getting bad habits.
Yeah, but how annoying was it that, well, for me, that she used the cup of tea as the trigger?
I thought
Because-
it made perfect sense.
No, why?
As me as a not hot drink
Oh, yeah.
drinker or liker have been saying for many years
For
that
this
tea is
very
evil
reason.
Exactly.
and
I knew
that
this
it
was
could
coming.
be used.
I knew this was coming. The tea
Nobody's
drinkers.
been hypnotised by a cup of water.
Exactly. Exactly that.
Yeah, it could have been anything else.
There's just so many weird bits about that party, actually. It's so hard to say, like, here's the bit where it became freaky, because it already is so odd and you feel so tense and you feel so, like, out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and confused. I was very confused by a lot of it.
Yeah, and then there's bits again where, like you say, you go, oh yeah, I think I understand what's happening here. And then suddenly you're like, I don't understand what's happening, or I do, but I don't understand why.
Yeah.
Like the bit with
Yeah.
the silent auction, which was just like, what on earth is even happening
Yeah.
here? But to what end?
Why
Like-
did it have to be silent? Why couldn't they just pretend to auction a vase and be like, oh, you just know that?
Yeah, it means him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and the moment when he goes upstairs and everyone suddenly stops and like follows him with their eyes, sort of thing. I was so confused by that. I was like,
Yeah.
I feel like I thought I knew what was happening, and now I totally don't know what's going
Yeah.
on. So yeah, that party was a massive curveball in a way.
Yeah, and then Chris is so good as a character, I think, at being like any one of us. So he's so personable and he's reacting in essentially the same way that any of
Yeah.
us would. So when he's taking a picture of that person and then it comes out later that it's Andre and that he kind of thinks he recognises him, he's acting really weird, and so you can understand why he would be filming or taking a picture of that.
Yeah.
Like, I would definitely be sending that to my lads and going, what on earth is happening here?
Yeah.
Um, And yeah, then obviously the Andre as a passenger like leaps out and is like, save me, and also save yourself.
Yes, but we don't really know then. Like, I thought I knew that he was saying get out, and I could sort of think, okay, he's trying to tell Chris to get out.
Yeah.
But I wonder whether we're supposed to think he's trying to like attack him or be like, get out, I hate you, I'm trying to kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite like, before you know the full story, that's quite like ambiguous. Like, is he trying to attack him and think that's what Chris was like, wasn't he? Like, he was trying to attack me, I don't really know what's happening. Whereas actually, he was trying to say, get yourself out of here because I'm in hell, basically.
Yeah.
It just makes like that's one of the weirdest things about this plot. And I did write down like, if Georgina, Walter, and Andre just weren't there for that weekend, there would have been no doubt, no like suspicion. Like, why would you? Like, Andre, he's already done, box ticked. They didn't need to be at that silent auction.
Oh yeah,
Right.
that's true.
Why was she there? She didn't want Chris's body.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I suppose, you know, they're taken over by those grandparents, aren't they? And like, I mean, I'm kind of jumping further forward in the film, but he gets her in the car when he's escaping and he thinks he's doing a good thing, but actually the grandma's like, you destroyed my house. Like, grandparents are fucking stubborn. And like, if you were like, you know what, granddad, we've got this thing coming up, it's going to be weird,
That's true, actually,
you need to make yourself scarce. I'm not fucking leaving my house for this. You can see how it would go down. So it's probably just easy just to be like, okay, just don't be fucking weird.
True.
Stay around if you need to. And obviously it was weird because they were there. But that conversation would never have gone well with any of my grandparents. Telling them that they got to leave their own house.
Yeah, true.
That is a good point. That's a very realistic,
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah, but then like, but then the grandmother has to be what Georgina was throughout that movie, like skulking around in the background and like I don't know. She wasn't herself. She wasn't able to be like she is the rest of the 9 to 5, presumably.
Yeah.
But they were so like half there, weren't they? They weren't like really there. Like, she was like scurrying around in the middle of the night, and
Yeah.
it's even like Andre, like I don't know if it explained it, but it wasn't like they just taken over the bodies. It's like they were 60% in control, and it's it didn't really.
You wonder though whether it's it's an evolving process, isn't it? if I don't know how many they've done, although there were all the pictures on the wall in the end, so presumably all of those
Roses
people
Oh,
are.
yeah.
partners.
But I would guess that the grandparents were probably some of the first.
Yeah.
So you wonder if it wasn't as good
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
then, and that's why they like are a bit dodgier in their
Yeah.
in how it actually works, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But Georgina's, the scene where Georgina, I can't remember where she was now, but when he is sort of probing her, Chris is like probing her a little bit, and then she starts crying.
Oh,
Do you remember? Like she starts,
Yes.
a tear
Yeah.
runs
And she does
down.
that petrifying gasp. She's like,
Yeah, and her face is literally, yeah, you can tell she's like, that's the moment for me where I was like, okay, that's not who we think. There's someone trying to get out type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As in a struggle there. Like,
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I think up until then, like I wasn't, like obviously hadn't foreseen that there was somebody else in there, so it was more of a like you're hypnotized, so you're essentially a zombie, like doing
Yeah.
what we tell you to do. Whereas actually, the whole concept of like there's another person in there was a whole new level and a bit.
and that acting was just amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, really
Yeah.
good.
so well
I felt
done.
so sorry for her, even though
Yeah.
like you don't know anything about Georgina as a
No.
character
Yeah.
because she's so like in the background.
There's that bit where, wow, he realizes he wants to go, and he's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
keys, Rose, keys. He gets whacked by the brother, doesn't he, with a lacrosse stick or something?
Oh yes.
And he's unconscious, but he's not hypnotized. But then he wakes up and he's chained, or like strapped into that chair.
Oh, yeah.
And even like that, like I appreciate it's needed for the plot, but the video by Roman explaining what's happening, like just knock them out. Like if you want an efficient like murder takeover situation, don't reveal your evil plan. Like
No, because they said that they were trying to mentally prepare him.
oh yes,
Yeah.
what client they were.
yeah,
well,
that
right.
was his job.
He did say, didn't it?
Oh, yeah,
It worked. The transfer or the transition works better with that introduction, didn't it?
Yeah.
Which again seems quite like
So specific, but I mean, I guess it adds to the tension of the film.
yeah.
And that whole scene is actually pretty terrifying.
That's the slow reveal, isn't it? You're like, okay,
Yeah.
now we know what's going on. Now
Yeah.
we're getting out of here.
I don't understand why it was such an old television. It was a very old
Yes,
TV.
that
It was an old
Yeah.
TV.
Yeah, but it was quite reflective of the sunken place.
Yeah,
screen.
yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Perhaps it
Yeah.
was.
That's true.
Possibly bigger, to be fair.
Yeah.
And then he does really well, so obviously he then puts the cotton in his ears to
Yes.
save himself. And I thought that's another thing, it's kind of like going back to Black History where cotton picking
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
what saved his life in the end.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
God. Because in that moment, I was like, I had no idea where this movie was going to go. And obviously, well, for people at home don't know, I can't do any sort of like Saw film or any like cut off your foot to get out of this situation or whatever. And I did not know what was going to happen in that basement. And I was like, please don't be a
You were
movie.
constantly saying, kill them all. Kill them all. Like, I don't care, just kill them all.
Cut off all
Well,
their
that
feet.
is- but not Chris.
No,
No,
I don't want
yeah,
him to have to do anything, and I don't want things to happen to him. So I didn't know where that was going to go. And actually, the rest of the film, well, yeah, it played out exactly as I wanted it to play out at that moment. Like I wanted him, well, except like the brain surgery, that was a bit out there. But the rest of the movie, where he literally just goes and murders everyone he comes across, that's exactly what I wanted to happen right then. I was like, yes, murder everyone, burn the place down, and just get yourself out.
I will provide an alibi. You were with me the whole time. It's
Exactly.
Do it.
So,
Yeah.
although I was expecting the worst and thinking, oh God, he's locked in the basement, what's going to happen? It was amazing from that point on. I was like, yes, I'm really, really enjoying all this.
So I would say Dan made me watch immediately after an alternate ending
Oh no!
on YouTube.
Yeah, Jordan Peele, they filmed and edited an alternate ending.
Really?
And
Yeah.
I was so glad that that was not the ending. If you basically list everything you do not want to happen,
Oh no!
it happens in that ending, doesn't it?
He doesn't get out.
He
He's
doesn't-
just taken over.
No, he doesn't die or
No.
and then get taken over as a host. No, but he does get arrested at the end.
No.
And
And
he's in
obviously,
prison.
he just looks like he has killed
Right,
all of those
Oh,
people,
no.
Instead
and there's
of-
no. Sorry.
Oh.
I was
So
going
you
to
say
say,
though, you can see why they did that.
yeah. No, I was just going to say instead of Rod turning up in his car, it's actually the police,
Oh,
and
and
that's
that's
when
where
he's
it
taken
differs.
in, yeah, on the road.
Oh yeah, because I had that written down as like a moment that resonated in a way, because you could see in Chris's face the moment the car turns up, his first thought is not like, oh thank God someone's here to help me. It's like, well I'm fucked now because
Yeah.
here's the police. And I had that, I was like, who's going to be in that car? And then obviously thank God it was Rod. But obviously,
The best character
he's the best
in
character.
the whole thing.
We need to talk about Rod as the best character.
Rod is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Everyone needs a Rod in their lives.
Oh.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he was great. He was
Yeah.
great throughout, wasn't he?
But yeah, that moment. Sorry, before we speak about Rod, like you said, that moment where there's sirens and you see that, and that's another thing. As we're all white people, you would see the police and be like, "Oh, thank fuck, this is help for us." Like it's just like they're never going to believe
But it
it.
might not.
And it's just that reminder that does not mean the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
For
Because
everyone.
even Rose, she was on the floor. She just was shot in the guts. So God only knows
Yeah.
how. But she was like, "Help me!" Like
Yeah.
she knew the police were going to be on her side.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go and watch that alternative ending, like, and then also go back and watch the original ending because that's the one.
Yeah.
The
I
original
like.
ending was so much
Yeah.
better. When we watched the
Yeah.
alternate, like it was really, like you say, Dan, it was really important to recognise all of those things in terms of just the film. I needed Chris to leave with Rod and go back to Sid and just have I don't know, watch some Netflix, get a pizza in maybe.
Tell
just
those police
like
officers that he was right.
exactly.
Yeah, but do you know what they could have done? Jordan Peele, what you could have done
This is for you.
So I don't know if you've seen the movie Descent or The Descent. Or it's basically a movie where they go down some caves and there's like everyone gets killed and there's one woman that gets out at the end and she like gets out of this cave and she runs and she's like fresh air and she's like yes, and then she's like 5 minutes later you realise she's imagined her escape and she is actually stuck down in the cave.
Just to note, I love that we're also spoilering films that we're not.
Sixth Sense, by the way.
But still, regardless of that, imagine if like you'd watched it and in the car's Rod and you're like, okay, yes, exactly what I said. That film played out exactly as I wanted, but actually, that isn't what happened.
Oh yeah.
And it was the police. Add the alternative ending on the end.
No.
And then you've got a movie that you want to talk about.
I don't want
We
it.
do want to talk about this movie.
Literally, we are literally
It
talking
was
about it.
amazing.
So you say, Jordan Peele, if you're listening, we need you to refilm the end of this film.
No. Please
No.
don't do that.
Oh, okay.
But just listen to my idea.
Yeah.
Just validate that would be good.
Okay.
And then leave exactly
then-
what you just said.
Yeah, and then leave what you did.
If
Maybe
anyone,
have an ending where with Rod and Sid and Chris watching Netflix.
Yeah.
Like that. If you want to refilm any sort of ending, Jordan,
yeah, if anyone listening,
that
has,
would be great.
Yeah, I mean, he won the Oscar for this film, but your ending probably would have secured that even more.
No, I just amalgamated both endings. I didn't do anything.
Just efficient, if anything.
Yeah.
And then the other, so with every hero in Rod comes the ultimate villain in Rose.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
I mean, first you see her as a villain before the actual twist. Just taking so long to find your car keys makes her one of the most annoying characters in the history of time.
yeah,
But yeah, the moment on the stairs where she's like, you know I'm not going to do that. And he's like, no,
yeah.
Still trying.
And it was amazing. Like Lucy pointed out, it was like regular Rose, and then she puts her hair up, and she's instantly evil Rose.
Yeah.
Like that point is a massive.
That's the same
switch.
for you and me.
You always have your hair.
I know.
You're goddamn terrifying.
Yeah, but the good thing about Rose was, well, it wasn't good, but I was sold by Rose until that moment where he, like, found all that stuff on the computer. I was like, she's not in it. And then I started thinking, you know, all the family are in it.
yeah, it's
I
weird
didn't know
she's
whether
not.
I wonder whether she was hypnotised as well.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought.
And I thought, because she's so good at, like, they seemed such a good, like, couple
Yeah.
and in it together, but obviously, yeah, she was in it too and was the worst of all.
And finding all of those pictures.
Yeah.
And including the one with Georgina.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
thinking,
water,
like,
yeah.
clearly every other one was a man. And clearly the Georgina one was because she had to find someone for her grandma. Like,
Yeah.
so weird and freakish.
It is weird because why, like, well, none of these people are questioning it. Like, the brother seemed quite unhinged as a person, so you could see why he would be into this. But, well, maybe she was too, but didn't seem any questioning, like, this wasn't a good idea, or maybe we shouldn't be doing this for our elderly grandparents. Like, how far was it going to go? How long
Yeah,
were
they
they
do
going to
not
do
want
this?
inheritance, do they?
No.
I suppose they must have got it though, to be fair, because on paper they must have
Oh, true.
Yeah,
done it,
they would have just
That's
kept
the
their
way
own.
it was.
It's interesting though, because imagine when they explain this concept to the grandparents, or maybe the grandparents, it was their idea.
It was.
Yeah,
It was their
yeah,
idea.
it was
Oh
their
right.
idea.
I was just going to say, like, again, like I'm maybe being stereotypical, but I'm only speaking from my experience. Trying to explain any kind of technology or anything to my grandparents is a goddamn nightmare.
Yeah.
This is a pretty big concept.
If it's beyond teletext, then
we
That
need
was
to
the
stop
teaching
showing our age in our references here.
You got to put 888 on.
Yeah, but even so, it was still very like, what's the word I mean? Like, it wasn't a technical process. It was literally hypnotizing people and then cutting off the top of their heads, taking out their brain, and putting it in another person.
True.
There wasn't like
Well, and they were doctors, weren't they?
neurosurgeons.
So, yeah. So that's they.
So some technical skill required.
No, but not like tech.
Oh yeah, not
It's like-
technical.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was-
physical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still confusing.
Weird that they decided to cut Jim's brain out before they made sure Chris was like at least
Even
nice
in the
and
room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, as a procedure, push that down the list of cutting it and removing somebody's brain.
Yeah. And throwing their scalp in a bin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Toss
Yeah,
that in a bin.
Because there was space for two people the whole time.
Yeah,
You might want to make sure there's one on each guy before you start your procedure.
Like they were, I was going to say good at a lot of things. They were effective at a lot of things.
Yeah.
Most of them terrible. Surgery, no.
It's like all those old Bond films, isn't it? It was like they'll put him in a shark tank above a laser and you're like, just shoot him. The more complicated you try and make this, the more chance there's of escaping.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just shoot him in the face if you want to.
Well, that's for the t-shirts. If you want something done, shoot him in the face.
But is it that the family were racist and they like were holding the old values of like, you know, black people are to serve us?
Yeah, like commodity to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't help but think because they speak, don't they, about kind of the people that they choose being perfect specimens, don't they? Like it is almost I think you said the vessel, like they're literally trying to choose the best vessel that they can. And I guess, like you said, if the grandfather lost to Jesse Owens, and so there's maybe this real thing of, you know, extreme sportsmanship and all of that stuff in itself being a form of racism.
Like there's acknowledgement of physical characteristics and like superior physical characteristics, but then obviously just treating like spare parts and spare for their using.
Yeah, like perhaps it's like that they know, like they would never do it to a white person because obviously you were murdering them or pretty much murdering them. But it's fine to do it to a black person.
Yeah, and I feel like I've read something with Jordan Peele with him saying about how a lot of white people are happy to, like they're still racist, but happy to take on like a lot of the stuff. So love rap music, or like take on those bits that they want to take on and make those super cool and super like trendy, like they said in the film, but actually is still really racist
And
and
refuse to give equal rights and like
Yeah, that's a good point actually, and that is even like evident in like music and stuff. Like Elvis was super popular, essentially recording the same songs as like a lot of black artists at the time.
Yeah.
Like he was happy to like take those styles and that and apply it to his own thing, and obviously then benefited greatly off of the work that other artists had done at the time.
Yeah. And it's the same with kind of beauty standards, isn't it? Of like choosing particular bits that then white women will do, but like you say, just not still wanting those things and elevating them above anything else, while still not giving people equal rights or making sure they're safe in their own places that they live. It's the point of the whole film, isn't it? Really, like that's why he said he made it, because he wanted to give everybody the experience of what it's like to feel that uncomfortable, just literally being in your skin, to feel that trapped, to feel that like
and it's effective in that way, like
really
incredible
is.
Like it makes you understand to a certain extent. Obviously we're only understanding this through watching a film, but and you would never, as a white person, know what it's like to go through that struggle. But it does give you a small glimpse into what it is like, in 21st century America to be a black person, and that's an incredibly powerful thing in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, and also not by doing that through a lesson, but by doing that through actually this is how we felt viscerally.
How you felt viscerally as a reaction to the film.
Yeah.
Also, even that, like our sort of description of what happened was also highlighted in the film as well, because the moment where, it's quite near the beginning, I think, where Rose is getting cross at her parents because they've been racist and said things that are not okay to Chris, and then they're up in the bedroom and she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, like I can't believe I didn't know this was going to happen," and he's just like nodding along, just like it's not even worth a conversation, because he's just like, well, yeah, happens all the time. And even that moment, obviously I didn't know what was then all going to happen in the rest of the movie, but she's still overlooking the fact that her boyfriend is having to go through all this stuff all the time.
And I think there's like a real white saviour thing happening at that point. That's how it felt, wasn't it? Like, no, you don't get to say what it's like to be a black person around my white family. I, as a white person, get to tell you what it's like to be a black person in this situation.
True.
Yeah, it's like the scene at the start with the car and the police officer when she stood up for him to not let his ID get checked even though he wasn't driving, and he found it really cool that she did that. But I thought it was going to be the other way, and he'd find it a bit like, you don't need to fight my battles for me. This is just like day-to-day life for me. I was quite surprised when he was like pleased with how she reacted to that.
And that then just carried on for a bit until she was obviously evil and tried to eat his brain. That old always the way.
She must have just done that so many times. That must have been the standard routine. Like that little bit where she stuck up for him with the car, she's probably done similar things to get people inside and to secure that relationship when it was all just BS all along anyway.
He might even have been in on it, that police officer. Like, she might set up those situations so that it gets people on side. Like, they were a real well-oiled machine, apart from not having both people lined up when you cut into the first person.
Yeah,
it would have worked absolutely fine then.
Would.
Yeah. Can we talk about Rod?
I feel like we need more on Rod.
I liked him. I thought he was a good kind of point of levity in the film. Like, the film obviously was amazing, and obviously you can't question how serious it is in terms of the themes it's trying to portray, but having him there was a really good way of being oh yeah, he's good, and it kept it going
and it's more real life as well, isn't it? It brings it down to earth.
Yeah, in those moments, what actually happens with real people. Rod was kind of that person. Oh, he's my friend. I want to sort him out. I want to help him. He was that person. And I liked it as well because, and especially that scene in the police station where he's going there and he's taking the dog in as well. Amazing. That's so funny. But where this is Jordan Peele's first film, and it's a horror film. He's mostly just known before this as comedy stuff, the Key and Peele show and that. And that little snippet was a real oh yeah, not only is this film amazing, he's also fucking great at comedy as well before that. So that was really cool as well. And Rod really kind of symbolised that, I think. Yeah,
and that scene where he's on the phone to Rose as well, trying to get her location stuff. That was really good.
Yeah.
And I thought as well, like you said, Dan, and it brought some an element of real life into it as well, because there's so many times when something terrible is happening in your life and something hilarious just happens and you leap on those bits, don't you? And that's what life is. And I feel so many films they ignore that bit because they obviously want you to feel so sad or so anxious or so into whatever feeling they're trying to get, but actually life is as surreal as it is sad, and as funny as it is sad, and he just added that in.
Yeah.
Even when he picked him up and he's told you not to go.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
amazing.
He's got him in the car. He knows he's safe, and then he's just like, "I told you."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and
Yeah.
that is exactly what would happen in real
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
Between us, we would do the same.
Absolutely.
You've got your mate back. You know they're safe, and now I'm going to
Yeah.
give you some fucking stick about it.
Yeah, now it's time to take the piss.
Yeah.
And that bit where he was like, I'm the TS motherfucking A. That bit was so good. You're like, yay, this is what I needed. Was
Yeah.
him to literally ride in, like run over Rose, reverse over.
Again and again.
Exactly, just keep going. I just have one other bit, which we've spoken about a little bit, which is around the idea of being a passenger in this whole thing. And like Andre and Georgina and having to literally look out, like they said, didn't they? A little sliver of you will always be in there, but you're like a passenger along for the ride. And I just cannot think of anything more petrifying than being like, you are stuck in there, you know everything that's happening to you, and there's literally is nothing.
Yeah.
And it might just be regular life. You just know you've got your own family and people, and just all of that stuff is just so. I was like, wow, that's so powerful and petrifying. Also, as a side thing, if he hadn't set the basement on fire, it would have been way more easy for him to explain to the police and things what was happening.
Oh yeah, true.
Because as it was, when Rod turned up, I thought it was going to be the whole he gets arrested by the police now. And he would have had no evidence whatsoever, because obviously all of them would have said, because they were, like you say, the grandma and stuff that were actually in charge of talking, they would have just said, no, everything's fine, I don't know what he's on about, he killed this whole family and we watched him do it. And he must have had like no proof whatsoever of that, because he got rid of it all himself.
I suppose because they didn't check his license, there was no evidence he was there now.
That's true.
So
maybe they just drove off.
His best bet is to like not mention it at all. He's not going to get any justice because they're all dead anyway.
Yeah.
So the best thing he can do is just like separate himself from that situation.
Well, then, because I was trying to think through like how, yes, he stopped it from happening at any point again in the future, but we know from those pictures of people that there are way more than just the three that we know about. There was like another 10 maybe, wasn't there?
That's what I said to you.
Yeah, where are they? Yeah.
Where are they? And also what?
Just
there's nothing that can be done for them, because they literally, half of their brain is
like,
someone else's brain.
Even
now,
if a
like,
hypnotist said, right, you're at the sunken place now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're only half a brain now.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
And there's also the other people at the party who were like bidding and stuff like that. They just went home. They're still out there knowing that that practice was going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, the house might have burned down and those people aren't alive who were actually doing it, but they were okay with it. And they were like, oh, the principle works. We just need to find someone else who can do that.
Yeah.
And more than okay with it. They were like active participants, weren't they? In that they were bidding and
Yeah. I did with that bit with the ID and the police officer. I did see somewhere it said by her stopping him getting ID'd as well, there was no evidence that he was there to get murdered or vesseled.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So maybe that was more why she stopped him than anything else.
Yes.
Just to not leave a trace.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
But I think it actually worked in his favour because there's no
because then he could. Yeah.
Again, that's another bit of like, there's a purpose to everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we come to the part of the podcast where we go through our very convoluted scoring system. So if you've got your scores at home, you can see how you compare to ours. First thing we look at is enjoyability. Luce, what did you score at 5?
I've given it a 4.
Okay.
4.5.
Oh, the classic 0.5.
5.
5. And I went for a 4. So let's start with you, Dan. You scored it 5 out of 5 for enjoyability. You enjoyed watching this film more than anything else. That's what you're telling us.
Yeah, I did. I mean, that's the thing. When I look back and I thought about my enjoyment of the film, yeah, it's like edgy and scary, but I couldn't find any fault in it in terms of like, I set out to watch a scary psychological film that ticked every box in terms of what I wanted and the enjoyment of that film.
Enough. Why did it lose half a point?
Oh, I scored it so high.
Don't give it the 4.5 you gave it.
I'm sorry,
What?
Jordan.
What was it hitting them up?
I mean, I guess it's really hard to rate a film as 5 that is so tense and so much about racial tensions in America. It just feels hard for me to do that. But, like Dan said, entirely kind of was what it set out to do.
Yeah. Loose? 4?
Yeah, 4. I really enjoyed it. I can't fault it in terms of like there's nothing I didn't enjoy about the movie, but it's just not my normal genre of movie. Which I've said before. I like the adorable moments. There wasn't many slash any in that movie that weren't.
There was Rod.
Yeah, that's true. Rod as a character, yes. But I liked the relationship between Chris and Rose, and then obviously that turned out to be total farcical. So I give it a good. I really, really enjoyed it, and I can't fault it. But as a personal enjoyment, I give it a 4.
Yeah, mine was very similar. Like for the genre and the category, it was really, really good.
Yeah.
But any high tension, kind of scary film, I cannot give a 5 because to enjoy it 5 out of 5, I need to be laughing. So it was fantastic, but I did not enjoy it 100%.
I get that.
But I don't think I was ever supposed to, so that's probably right. So the next category is shareability. Again, out of 5. Luke's.
I gave it a 5.
Nice.
Yeah, 5.
I also gave it a 5, but Dan, what did you give it?
I gave it a 4.
Oh.
Only because there's not every single person who I would recommend that film to.
Such as?
Well, my mum and dad. You know, that kind of, they just wouldn't enjoy it. And like you said, Lucy, you said that you don't enjoy super gory films. This one isn't, I wouldn't say a super gory film. There's that little bit with the scalp or whatever. My mum and dad would find that far too gory and they would be really put off.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
But, you know, still a 4. It's a very amazing film and I've told a lot of people about this film.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is it's a film that you want as many people as you can to watch it, with an awareness that probably will not be everyone.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can get a lot of different messages from it, especially if you are of like a minority group. But it was definitely an experience from start to finish, regardless of what messages you were taking from it. Like the story was amazing.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, and I was, like I said, like there was enough hints as to what was going on to keep me gripped throughout. And the ending, just like I say, was as good as I hoped.
Yeah, I put shareability as 5 because I immediately messaged my dad and said, you have to watch this, and messaged me throughout. And his review was that he enjoyed it and it was worth £2.50.
Oh, the old rental cost.
The old rental cost. So
well done, Abby's dad.
Yeah, there's a film review. He can start his own podcast.
Yeah.
It's going to be the shortest thing in the world.
It's just him saying how much he would pay for a film.
Yes or no, was it worth £2.49?
Yes, yeah.
I think that's like for me, it was, if it was coming up to Halloween and somebody wanted to watch a scary film, that's perfect because it's not a slasher, it's not got some weird demon that comes out every 20 years. It's just a really intense, possible, in air quotes, film that everyone, even if you don't really like that kind of horror genre, can sit down and watch.
Yeah.
But the last category is masterpieceability. That's a standard word, which we will get in the dictionary. So, how much of a masterpiece was it? Let's go, Abby.
4.5.
Ooh. Loose.
4.
Dan?
I said 5.
Oh, and I went 4.
Oh.
So, a bit of a mix. Loose, why 4?
Well, even as I said that, I feel like maybe that's a bit low, to be honest. Like, after our discussions, I appreciate, like, you guys have highlighted to me more than what I initially took from it. But I was just thinking more of, like, and like visually, it wasn't like an epic movie. It wasn't like cinematography wise, it wasn't like off the scale. It was a very like standard movie, whereas the story was amazing. So I just marked it down 1 for that, really.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
fair.
Okay.
A bit more generous with a 0.5 on top.
Yeah, I just thought like there were so many layers to it, weren't there? You could watch it, like you said a minute ago, you could watch it with like not thinking anything else and just go with, this is so scary, I would hate this happening, and just end it there. Or you could go like any number of layers down and find it interesting for another reason. Like you said, Sam, with the story and it being like there was nothing that wasn't considered. I think probably the only thing for me that shifted it down a little bit were those couple of bits where you go, if that could easily have not happened, and if it hadn't happened, then the story would have been completely different. Like the grandparents just not being there, they could easily have just gone to an Airbnb for the weekend and it would have been fine.
Rod coming along was quite a big deal.
Yeah.
And seeing Andre at the party almost essentially led to Rod being there.
Yeah.
So if he wasn't there, very different ending.
So that was the thing for me, was just that there were a couple of bits where like it had to happen for the story, not because of the internal integrity of it, just would have happened anyway. Yeah,
and I suppose so many films, probably all films, have that. This has to happen. This happens. I suppose where it was quite small in scale, this film. So you notice the steps a bit more because there's not as many of them, which is like what makes the film amazing, but also makes you just see that steps a bit more. Yeah. Dan, full marks, masterpieceability.
Masterpieceability, a 5. I was thinking it was just what else could it have had, and I don't know what that would be. It just dragons. Yeah, I suppose it could have had dragons, but
sex scenes,
fight scenes.
I just thought it was brilliant. Loved it.
Not just because it was your choice, but yeah, okay.
Well, no, I mean, obviously I knew what it was going in, so but that's only the second time I watched it. I watched it one time, and then I just thought that was one of the best films I've watched in recent years.
Amazing. Yeah. So I voted it 4 out of 5, and in my very simplistic view, I always think, would this have been better if I watched it at the cinema? And I don't think it would have. Like watching it at home, it was absolutely like fine. It didn't need the big scale. It wasn't like the music was good, but it wasn't the biggest masterpiece. It never needed to be. It was perfect for what it was. But to me, to get a 5 out of 5 for masterpiece, it has to be like big screen.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Interesting.
So that brings the total for all of those categories at 54 out of 60.
That is a high
which
score.
is a very impressive score, and I think well deserved. And it does feel like that's where it should be sitting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think of our film reviews to date, that is our highest scoring.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, like for a thriller horror film, I really, really enjoyed it, and would definitely watch it again. So
yeah, me too.
I think that's the thing. You probably have 3 people here that wouldn't choose that as their like ideal genre.
Yeah.
And for it to rank so highly when it's not our ideal genre.
Yeah. Which is perfect, and which is why we like need to know about these films we wouldn't normally watch, which is really good. So any viewers at home, like if you've got a good film you think we should watch, just get in touch.
Thank you for coming along to this week's Halloween Lads Film Club and joining us where we discussed Get Out.
We'd love to know what you thought about it too. Were you as gripped as we were? Let us know on our Twitter or Instagram, and you can find the details of those in the description.
And then join us next week when Abby's choosing the next film. Ab, do you want to reveal what it is?
Yeah. Next time I've chosen Dirty Dancing, the 1987 romantic dance drama directed by Emil Ardolino.
Yes, I'm so excited for this.
Me too. Such a good film, and not just because of the steamy bits that you were missing in this one.
If you enjoyed listening to our podcast, please leave us a rating and a review.
And don't forget, share with your own lads.
Or share it with anyone, really. We're not picky.
Maybe not your petrifying in-laws. Not for Get Out, anyway.
So grab your popcorn.
Round up your lads.
Get watching.
And join us next week.
Bye. Bye.
This week's is our spooky Halloween episode, and I've chosen.
No, that was going so well.
I can't believe he just headbutted the mic.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah, he just
Mike,
nudged it with his nose, like right over.